After one, the whole stadium was chanting when Adrian Cross told his wife to stand up and give her VIP seat to his mistress. Claire Whitmore did not move at first. She sat beneath the blazing white lights of the World Cup final, one hand resting on the small velvet box in her lap, the other curled around the edge of the leather seat she had chosen months ago. Below them, the field shone bright green. Cameras swept over 90,000 roaring fans. Flags rippled like fire across every tier. Adrian leaned close enough for the scent of his expensive cologne to cut through the smell of rain, grass, and champagne. "Claire," he said through his smile, "do not embarrass me. Stand up." On his other side, Bianca Vale tilted her head with practiced sweetness. She was 26, blonde, glossy, and dressed in a white designer suit that looked more appropriate for a yacht than a football stadium. Around her neck hung the sapphire pendant Claire had noticed missing from Adrian's safe 2 weeks earlier. Bianca held 2 crystal flutes, as if she had already been welcomed into Claire's life and was merely waiting for the wife to accept the seating arrangement. "I told him I did not mind sitting behind," Bianca said, her voice soft enough to sound innocent and loud enough for the row to hear. "But Adrian said I should have the better view tonight." Claire looked at the seat number on her ticket. Royal Box A12. Her name was printed beneath it. Claire A. Whitmore. Not Mrs. Cross. Not guest of Adrian Cross. Not +1. Her name. Adrian's fingers tightened around her shoulder. He was still smiling because the cameras were near. He had built an empire by never looking cruel when anyone important might be watching. "This is a networking night," he murmured. "Bianca needs to meet people. You hate football anyway." Claire turned her face toward him slowly. She had not raised her voice once in 12 years of marriage. Adrian had mistaken that for a lack of volume in her soul. "I watched qualifiers with my father before you knew what a penalty was," she said. His smile twitched. "Do not be dramatic." Bianca laughed lightly. "It is just a seat." Claire looked at her. "Then take another one." For the first time, Bianca's eyes sharpened. Adrian's hand slid from Claire's shoulder to her upper arm. Not a grab exactly. Not enough for a scandal if photographed. Enough to tell her he believed her body could still be moved by his will. "You will stand," he said. The velvet box in Claire's lap suddenly felt heavier. Inside was the small gold pin her father had worn to every match he attended before he died. She had brought it because tonight the stadium would announce a youth football foundation funded in his name. Adrian did not know that. He did not know because he had not read the invitation. He had not asked why Claire's ticket arrived separately. He had not questioned why the head of tournament hospitality personally called to confirm her dietary needs. He had only seen a royal box and assumed his business connections had finally placed him where he deserved to be. That had always been Adrian's favorite assumption. If a door opened near him, he believed it had opened for him. "Adrian," Claire said, "remove your hand." His eyes narrowed. Around them, executives, athletes, and Federation guests pretended not to listen while listening completely. The national anthem was moments away. A camera crane floated above the neighboring section, hunting for beautiful faces and expensive reactions. Bianca stepped closer, lips forming a little pout. "Claire, please. You are making this uncomfortable." Claire almost smiled. For years, discomfort had been her assigned territory. She was expected to hold it quietly, so Adrian could move through rooms unburdened. Tonight, she decided to return it. She stood, and Adrian's expression eased with instant satisfaction. Then Claire picked up the small event tablet attached to the seat, tapped the concierge icon, and spoke into the live service line. "This is Claire Whitmore in Royal Box A12. Please send the head of security and the tournament hospitality director. There is an unauthorized guest attempting to occupy my assigned sponsor seat." Adrian froze. Bianca's smile disappeared. The anthem began, and 90,000 people rose. Claire remained standing with everyone else, calm beneath the roar, while her husband finally looked at the ticket in her hand. Only then did he see the gold crest beside her name. Founding events because they made private cruelty efficient. In a private room, Claire might ask questions. She might refuse. She might make him explain why Bianca needed to travel with them, why Bianca had a suite in the same hotel, why Bianca's name appeared on a VIP access list Adrian claimed his assistant had arranged by mistake. But in public, surrounded by cameras and important people, Adrian expected Claire to protect his image even while he damaged her dignity. That had been their marital arrangement long before he brought another woman into it. The anthem filled the stadium. Claire sang softly. Adrian did not. His gaze flicked from her ticket to the aisle, then toward the cameras. Bianca stood with a hand over her heart, but her mouth did not know the words. The sapphire pendant at her throat caught the light each time she swallowed. When the anthem ended, the stadium exploded again. Adrian leaned close. Cancel whatever you just did. Claire looked down at the field. No. Claire. The match is starting. Do you understand who is here tonight? Yes, she said. I approved most of the guest list. He stared at her. The first whistle blew. Below them, the players surged forward. The sound of the crowd rolled over the royal box like weather. For one surreal minute, Adrian said nothing. The ball moved beautifully from midfield to the right wing, and Claire watched it with the focused sorrow of a woman aware that one loudest celebration. Then two men in dark suits appeared at the aisle. The first was Thomas Reed, tournament hospitality director, silver-haired and unflappable. Claire had known him since her father sponsored the youth league that gave Thomas his first job. The second was a security supervisor wearing an earpiece and an expression that invited no argument. Thomas bowed his head slightly. Ms. Whitmore, you requested assistance. Adrian gave a bright laugh. Thomas, good to see you. Small misunderstanding. My wife overreacted. Thomas did not look at him. Ms. Whitmore? Claire handed him the ticket and access credential. My assigned seat is being demanded for Ms. Vale, who is not listed in Royal Box A. Bianca's voice rose. I was invited by Adrian. Thomas finally turned to Adrian. Mr. Cross is seated in A13 as a registered guest of Ms. Whitmore. The sentence was so polite it took a second to cut. Adrian's jaw locked. There must be an error. Cross Global is a tournament partner. A hospitality vendor, Thomas corrected. For regional advertising technology. Royal Box A is assigned to founding patrons, heads of delegation, and primary legacy sponsors. Claire felt the eyes in the row sharpen toward Adrian. One man in a Federation blazer stopped pretending to check his phone. A former player 2 seats down took a slow sip of water, his gaze fixed forward with admirable discipline. Adrian lowered his voice. Thomas, I suggest you handle this discreetly. That is what we are doing, Thomas said. The security supervisor stepped half a pace forward. Ms. Vale may be escorted to the guest lounge if she has a valid stadium credential. Bianca looked at Adrian. Guest lounge? The words hurt her more than the insult itself. She had arrived expecting cameras to find her in a royal box. Guest lounge sounded like somewhere people ate sandwiches under fluorescent lights. Adrian forced a laugh. Nobody is moving. We are all adults. Claire turned to him. Then act like one. His eyes flashed. For one dangerous second she saw the man from their kitchen 2 nights earlier, when he had slammed a cabinet hard enough to crack the hinge because she asked why Bianca was traveling to the final. You will regret this, he said quietly. Claire looked at the field. A striker missed a pass by inches. The crowd groaned as one body. I already do, she replied. Just not in the way you mean. Thomas waited, patient and devastating. Bianca took 1 step back from the row. Her face had changed from smug to brittle. She clutched the champagne flutes, then realized both were empty, and set them on the ledge too hard. One tipped, spilling a few drops onto the polished floor. Adrian, she whispered, do something. He looked from Claire to Thomas, from Thomas to the cameras, from the cameras to the neighboring guests. Calculation moved across his face in quick, ugly pieces. At last he smiled again. Bianca, go ahead to the lounge, he said. I will sort this out. Bianca stared as if he had betrayed her. He had. Just more quickly than she expected. The security supervisor guided her toward the aisle. Bianca passed Claire close enough for the sapphire pendant to brush the edge of Claire's sleeve. Claire spoke without looking away from the field. Leave the necklace. Bianca stopped. Adrian's face went pale. Thomas's brows lifted. Claire finally turned. That sapphire belonged to my mother. It was removed from my home safe without permission. Bianca touched the pendant with trembling fingers. Adrian gave it to me. I believe you, Claire said. It came 12 minutes later, but Adrian did not see it. He was standing in the private corridor outside Royal Box A, arguing with security in a voice that kept trying to become quiet and failing. Bianca stood beside him with the sapphire pendant sealed inside a clear evidence pouch held by the security supervisor. Her neck looked bare without it, and her confidence looked even barer. Claire remained in her seat. When the striker curled the ball into the top corner, the stadium erupted so violently the floor seemed to lift. Claire rose with the crowd. For a moment, she forgot Adrian, Bianca, the pendant, and the humiliation that still trembled somewhere under her ribs. She saw only the game her father had loved, the impossible precision of a foot meeting a ball at speed, the collective human joy of strangers becoming one voice. Then the replay flashed across the giant screen, and beside it appeared the pre-match sponsor montage. Whitmore Legacy Foundation. For every child who was told the field was not for them. Claire's father's face appeared for 3 seconds in an archival photograph. Gray hair windblown, laughing beside a muddy youth pitch, one hand on the shoulder of a child holding a football nearly too large for his arms. Claire's throat tightened. Her father, Arthur Whitmore, had built shipping lines, sports academies, medical charities, and a private investment network so broad that newspapers called him unreachable, and children in small towns called him the man who fixed the lights. He had believed sport could reveal character faster than conversation. He had also warned Claire that Adrian Cross admired victory more than effort. She had married Adrian anyway. Love, she had learned, could be a poor scout. At halftime, Thomas Reed returned. "Ms. Whitmore," he said gently, "the chairman would like to confirm whether you still intend to attend the foundation announcement after the match." Claire glanced toward the corridor. Adrian had not returned to his seat. A message from him glowed on her phone. "Do not escalate this. We will discuss it at the hotel. If you embarrass Bianca again, I will make sure every camera sees what kind of wife you are." Claire read it once. Then she forwarded it to Eleanor Shaw, her attorney and foundation trustee. Eleanor replied in less than 20 seconds. "Preserved. Do not respond. Hydrate." Claire almost laughed. Eleanor's legal advice always included practical threats to her client's blood sugar. She looked at Thomas. "Yes, I will attend. Your father would be very proud." That nearly broke her composure. She folded her hands around the velvet box. "He would ask why I waited so long." Thomas, wise enough not to pretend he did not understand, simply nodded. By the time the second half began, Adrian returned alone. He sat stiffly in A13, no longer touching her, no longer smiling for nearby guests. His face had the controlled rigidity of a man holding a door shut while floodwater rose behind it. "You made a scene," he said. "You brought one. Bianca is humiliated." Claire watched a midfielder steal the ball cleanly. "How difficult for her. Do you hear yourself? You sound cruel." She turned then. "You asked me to give my seat to your mistress at a World Cup final in front of half the business world. Lower your voice. No one can hear me over 90,000 people. They can see you." "Good." He stared, unsettled by the unfamiliar edge in that single word. Adrian's phone buzzed repeatedly. Claire saw previews from his chief operating officer, his assistant, a reporter, Bianca, Bianca again, then Bianca in all caps. He flipped the screen down. "What is this foundation announcement?" he asked. The question was too casual. He had seen the montage. He had finally begun to understand the event contained rooms he had not been invited into. "A commitment to build football facilities in underserved regions," Claire said. "My father started the fund. I expanded it." "With what money?" She looked at him. For years, Adrian had described her wealth as comfortable, old-family, decorative. He knew she had trusts. He knew she sat on boards. But he had never cared enough to understand scale. He had been too busy presenting himself as the self-made genius who tolerated his quiet wife's charitable hobbies. "Enough," she said. "That is not an answer. It is the one you earned." His eyes narrowed. "Claire, we are not enemies." She turned back to the match. "Then why did you bring backup?" In the 70th minute, the stadium camera swept the royal box. Faces appeared on the giant screen. A retired striker, a minister of sport, 2 film stars, then Adrian. He instantly smiled. The camera slid to Claire. She did not smile. She looked calm, elegant, and completely uninterested in helping him perform. The stadium saw a composed woman in midnight blue silk, a gold pin at her collar, her gaze clear beneath the lights. Then the camera shifted to the empty space beside Adrian, where Bianca should have been. The crowd did not know the story, but the royal box did. A ripple of whispers moved through the row. Adrian's smile collapsed 1 second too late, trying to recover control without appearing to reach for it. He texted. He stood once, then sat when Thomas glanced over. He leaned toward Claire twice and stopped himself because the former player nearby had stopped pretending not to watch. His public mask was still on, but it no longer fit his face. Claire focused on the field. The match went into extra time. Rain began to fall and a fine silver mist through the open roof, glittering in the floodlights. The players moved with exhaustion and desperation, their shirts darkened, their legs heavy, their hunger unmistakable. Claire loved that part of football most. Not the perfection, but the reveal. Under pressure, everyone became more honest. Adrian became smaller. In the final minute, a defender cleared a ball off the line. The stadium screamed. Claire stood with everyone else, heart pounding, and for a breath she was 16 again beside her father, cold hands wrapped around a paper cup of tea, learning that hope could hurt and still be worth having. The whistle blew. The match went to penalties. Adrian cursed under his breath. He hated uncertainty. Penalties turned billionaires into children and children into prophets. No amount of money could negotiate with a goalkeeper's instinct. Claire watched each kick. Goal. Goal. Mississippi save. Goal. The stadium rose and sank in waves. When the final penalty hit the net, half the world seemed to explode at once. Confetti burst into the night. Claire applauded until her palms stung. Adrian did not. His phone had lit up again. This time, the name on screen was not Bianca. It was Grant Mercer, chairman of Cross Global. Adrian ignored it. Claire noticed. So did Adrian, noticing her notice. "What did you do?" he asked. "Watched football." Claire. Before he could say more, Thomas appeared at the row entrance with a woman in a black suit and a tournament credential. "Ms. Whitmore, the post-match presentation team is ready." Adrian stood. "Presentation?" The woman smiled professionally. "Ms. Whitmore is scheduled to join the Youth Foundation announcement before the trophy ceremony." Adrian's expression flickered. "I will accompany my wife." "Your credential does not grant access to the presentation tunnel," the woman said. The words were not loud. They did not need to be. Adrian looked at Claire. "Tell them. For 12 years, tell them had meant repair this for me. Tell them I did not mean to miss dinner. Tell them the check is coming. Tell them the rumor is false. Tell them my temper is stress. Tell them I am a good man who made one mistake." Claire picked up the velvet box. "Enjoy the trophy ceremony from your seat," she said. Then she walked away. The corridor behind the royal box was cooler and quieter. Staff moved with precise urgency. Screens showed players embracing on the field. Somewhere beyond the walls, the crowd chanted a name again and again. Thomas walked beside Claire. "Are you all right?" That question had followed her all evening from people who barely knew her. "I will be," she said. At the tunnel entrance, Eleanor Shaw waited with a tablet under one arm. Eleanor was 60, sharp as a paper cut, and wearing pearls that looked like they had successfully intimidated judges. "You forwarded his message," Eleanor said. "Hello to you too. Hydrate." Claire accepted the water bottle Eleanor thrust at her. "Bianca?" Escorted to a private lounge. "She is calling Adrian. Adrian is ignoring her, and her publicist is calling everyone. Security has the pendant. Your home safe team confirmed unauthorized access on Tuesday." Claire closed her eyes briefly. "Of course. Also, Grant Mercer has called Adrian 3 times. He has called me once. I did not answer." "Why Grant?" Eleanor gave her the look she reserved for clients who knew the answer. Claire did know. Cross Global had recently secured a stadium advertising contract worth almost $200 million over 4 years. The financing behind that expansion came from Whitmore Capital's discretionary sports media fund. Adrian believed the fund was a passive investor introduced by Grant Mercer. He did not know Claire chaired the investment committee. He did not know she had abstained from the original vote only because she was married to him. He did not know that after tonight, abstaining would no longer be enough. "The committee meets tomorrow," Eleanor said. Claire watched the tunnel open toward the field. Lights poured across the entrance, white and merciless. "Move it to tonight." Eleanor's smile was small and approving. The stadium did not know her story. That was fine. She was not there for pity. She walked across the edge of the pitch beside 2 youth players chosen from the Whitmore Legacy Academies. Sophia, 12, from a coastal town where the old field used to flood every spring, and Milo, 11, whose first boots had come from a foundation box with his name written in black marker. They were both trembling with excitement. Claire lowered her pace to match theirs. The giant screen shifted from celebration highlights to the foundation film. Children on dusty fields. Girls practicing under floodlights. Coaches unlocking equipment sheds. A little boy with missing front teeth shouting after scoring a goal into a net patched with blue rope. Then Arthur Whitmore's voice filled the stadium from an old interview. "The game does not belong to the powerful. It belongs to anyone brave enough to run toward the ball." Claire stopped at the presentation mark. For a moment, grief rose so hard she could taste it. Then Sophia slipped her small hand into Claire's. Claire looked down. The girl did not know she was saving a billionaire patron from crying on global television. She only looked terrified and thrilled and alive. Claire squeezed her hand back. The stadium announcer spoke in 3 languages, naming the expansion of the Whitmore Legacy Foundation and its commitment to fund 1,000 community pitches across 40 countries. The number flashed across the screen. 1,000. Adrian, watching from the royal box, finally understood scale. Claire could not see his face clearly from the field, but the broadcast cameras could. Later, she would learn that his expression during that announcement became the most replayed image of the night that did not involve the winning team. The self-made mogul, seated as his wife's guest, staring down at the woman he had ordered to surrender her chair. Claire opened the velvet box and removed her father's gold pin. The presenter invited her to speak. She had planned 2 sentences. After what happened in the royal box, she chose 3. My father believed access changes destiny, she said. Tonight is not about privilege in a box. It is about every child who deserves a field, a coach, and the right to be seen. The stadium applauded. Claire paused. No one should ever be pushed out of a place they earned. The applause changed. It deepened, as if the crowd sensed a second meaning without knowing the first. In the royal box, Adrian went completely still. The ceremony moved on. Sophia and Milo presented a commemorative ball to the tournament chair. Claire stood beside them beneath confetti and stadium lights, feeling her old life peel away in public without anyone seeing the blood. Afterward, she returned through the tunnel, where Eleanor waited with her phone. Committee is assembled, Eleanor said. Now. Claire followed her into a temporary executive suite converted into a secure call room. On the screen waited 5 members of the Whitmore Capital Sports Media Investment Committee, all in different time zones, all looking more awake than anyone had a right to look after midnight. Grant Mercer was not on the call. Adrian was not on the call. That was the point. Claire sat, removed the gold pin from her collar, and placed it on the table. Thank you for joining quickly, she said. No one asked why. They had already seen enough social media clips to know something had happened. Serious people did not require gossip to identify risk. Martin Ellis, the committee's risk chair, spoke first. We have reviewed the initial incident report from Stadium Hospitality. Cross Global's principal attempted to transfer a founding patron's seat to an uncredentialed guest and invoked business importance while doing so. Correct, Claire said. There is also a jewelry matter. Family property removed from my home safe and given to the same guest. A woman named Priya Shah leaned forward. Is there evidence Cross Global resources were used? Eleanor answered. Preliminary review shows Ms. Vale traveled under a Cross Global executive hospitality allocation. We are requesting records. Claire watched the faces on screen settle into the expression investors wore when a personal scandal became a governance problem. Martin said, the stadium advertising facility includes morality and executive conduct provisions. It does, Claire said. Do you intend to recuse? She had expected the question. From any vote directly affecting Adrian's personal position, yes. From protecting Whitmore Capital's exposure, no. I will not let my marriage become a blind spot. Priya nodded. That is the correct distinction. For the next 40 minutes, they reviewed triggers, exposure, reputational risk, and alternatives. The decision was not theatrical. Money rarely moved with music. It moved through clauses, timelines, and signatures. By the end, Cross Global's funding draw was frozen pending executive review. Adrian's stadium contract would be subject to enhanced audit. Grant Mercer would be notified before morning. No public statement would be made unless Cross Global lied first. Claire stood when the call ended. Eleanor watched her carefully. You handled that well. I hated every second. That often improves judgment. Claire looked toward the stadium tunnel, where chants still echoed. He thought a seat was the insult, she said. Adrian found her outside the executive suite. His bow tie was loosened. His hair, perfect at the start of the evening, had fallen slightly over his forehead. He looked handsome still, which annoyed Claire more than it should have. Betrayal did not always have the decency to make a man ugly. We need to talk, he said. Eleanor stepped forward. Not without counsel. Adrian ignored her. Claire, please. The please sounded unfamiliar in his mouth, like a borrowed language. Claire was tired. The match, the seat, the necklace, the field ceremony, the emergency investment call, all of it had compressed into a hard, bright stone behind her ribs. 5 minutes, she said. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. In the open corridor, Claire added. With witnesses. Adrian's face tightened at the word witnesses, but he nodded. They walked a few steps away from the suite. Staff moved around them with careful discretion. The stadium had begun emptying, leaving behind distant chants, discarded programs, and the metallic scent of rain on concrete. Adrian spoke first. I made a mistake. Claire waited. A terrible mistake, he added quickly. Which one? His mouth opened, then closed. That was the problem with calling a pattern a mistake. When asked to name it, the lie became clumsy. Bringing Bianca, he said. And the seat. And he looked irritated now. His humility had shallow roots. The necklace, he said. And Claire, I am trying. No, she said. You're listing what you got caught doing. Color rose along his cheekbones. You humiliated me in front of the entire stadium. There it was. The true wound. Not that he had hurt her. Not that he had brought a mistress into her father's memorial night. Not that he had stolen from her family safe. His pain began where cameras noticed consequences. You were seated in Royal Box A because of me, Claire said. You attempted to remove me from my own seat. In front of my father's foundation guests. In front of the tournament hospitality staff who have known my family for decades. What exactly did you expect me to protect? Our marriage. The word almost made her laugh. Not because marriage was funny, but because his version had become absurd. You brought Bianca to sit beside you. It was complicated. It was simple enough for her to wear my mother's sapphire. Adrian looked away. Claire studied him. Did she know? Know what? That the necklace was mine. He hesitated. The answer hurt, though not as much as she expected. You told her, Claire said. She asked where it came from. And you said? His silence completed the sentence. Claire imagined Bianca fastening the pendant at her throat, enjoying not only the jewel but the knowledge. The intimacy of theft. The little violence of wearing another woman's history as decoration. I wanted in writing that you removed the necklace from my safe, Claire said. That is unnecessary. It is necessary for you. Adrian's eyes sharpened. Meaning? Meaning I am giving you one chance to tell the truth before the security report tells it for you. For the first time since he found her, fear moved plainly across his face. You would call the police? I have not decided. Over a necklace? Claire's voice dropped. Over my mother's necklace. Over my home safe. Over the fact that you thought anything connected to me was yours to redistribute. He dragged a hand over his mouth. God, Claire, listen to yourself. You sound like your father. That was meant to wound her. It steadied her instead. Thank you, she said. Adrian's phone rang. Grant Mercer again. This time Adrian answered, perhaps hoping to regain some masculine terrain in front of her. Grant, not now. Claire could not hear every word from the other end, but she heard enough. Frozen. Review. Conduct clause. Bored. Morning. Adrian's face lost color in stages. He turned away, lowering his voice, but the corridor was too open for secrets. No, that is not necessary. This is a domestic matter. Claire is upset. She will clarify. Claire lifted her chin. Grant must have said something sharp, because Adrian's shoulders tightened. She chairs what? Adrian asked. There it was. The missing piece finally entering the room. Adrian turned slowly toward Claire, phone still at his ear. For 12 years, he had believed he understood the balance of power in their marriage. He was the builder. She was the heiress with quiet hobbies. He generated value. She preserved heritage. He moved markets. She wrote checks for children in museums. Now Grant Mercer was telling him the stadium deal, the expansion loan, and the future he had planned all sat beneath the signature authority of the wife he had ordered to stand. Adrian ended the call without saying goodbye. Whitmore Capital, he said. Claire said nothing. You chair the sports media fund. Yes. Since when? Before you applied for financing. His expression twisted. You let me pitch to your people like a fool. You pitched to a committee. I recused from the original vote because of our marriage. But you knew. Yes. And you said nothing. Claire felt a tired anger move through her, clean and cold. Adrian, you have spent years calling my work sentimental. You skipped foundation briefings. You mocked my board packets. You told people I did good works because I had no appetite for real business. Do not blame me because you ignored every door with my name on it. He stared at her as if she had struck him. Then, because he was Adrian, he found the accusation that best protected his pride. You trapped me. Claire shook her head. After 7 by morning, the photograph was everywhere. It was not the one Claire expected. Not the stadium camera catching Adrian beside an empty seat. Not the clip of Claire on the field. Not even the image of Bianca leaving the royal box without the sapphire pendant. The photograph that traveled fastest showed Adrian leaning over Claire in royal box A, his hand tight around her arm, Bianca standing beside him with champagne and a satisfied smile. Someone had taken it from 2 rows back during the anthem. The caption wrote itself in 100 languages. World Cup VIP drama. Businessman appears to force wife from seat for younger woman. By 9, Cross Global's communications department issued a statement calling the incident a private misunderstanding among friends. At 9:15, Tournament Hospitality declined to confirm that description. At 9:20, the Whitmore Legacy Foundation released its own statement thanking attendees for supporting global youth football access and confirming that founding patron seating was non-transferable for security and protocol reasons. It did not name Adrian. It did not need to. At 10, Bianca posted a photo of herself from the hotel balcony wearing sunglasses and no necklace. The caption read, "People always hate the woman who is loved." By guest removed from Royal Box A. By 10:30, she deleted the post. Claire watched none of this voluntarily. Eleanor summarized it while Claire sat at breakfast in the hotel suite, wearing a cream sweater, hair damp from the shower, eyes gritty from 3 hours of sleep. "I would prefer a war room with less fruit," Eleanor said, looking at the lavish breakfast spread. "Eat the berries. I am not here for antioxidants." "You are always here for antioxidants. You just call them evidence." Eleanor gave her a look, then took a blackberry. Across the table, Thomas Reed had sent a formal incident report. It confirmed Bianca's credential status, Adrian's demand, Claire's seat assignment, and the recovered pendant. The security footage from the corridor showed Bianca admitting Adrian gave her the necklace. It also showed Adrian saying, "Claire does not need family relics to watch a game." Claire read that line twice. Family relics. Her mother had worn the sapphire the night Arthur proposed. Claire had worn it at her parents' anniversary dinner the year before her mother died. It was not the most expensive jewel in the Whitmore collection, but grief does not appraise by market value. Adrian had known that. The suite doorbell rang. Eleanor checked her phone. "Your brother." Claire frowned. "He flew in. Apparently with opinions." Julian Whitmore entered wearing travel clothes, a dark coat, and the expression of a man who had been angry across 2 continents. He was Claire's older brother by 4 years, a former goalkeeper whose knee injury ended a professional career before it began. He now ran Whitmore Logistics with the calm menace of someone who had once thrown himself at flying objects for fun. He crossed the room and hugged Claire without asking. She held herself together until his hand touched the back of her head. Then something in her softened and shook. Julian said quietly, "I should have been here." It was a football match, not a duel. Apparently it became both. Eleanor sipped coffee. "Family support is moving. Keep it useful." Julian looked at her. "Good morning to you too, Eleanor. It would be better if men stopped creating paperwork." He sat beside Claire and picked up the incident report. His face darkened as he read. "I am going to break his jaw." "No," Claire and Eleanor said together. Julian exhaled through his nose. "Fine. I will imagine it." "Imagine quietly," Eleanor said. Claire leaned back. "I need strategy, not revenge." Julian's expression softened. "You can have both. Strategy first." They spent the morning reviewing the moving pieces. Cross Global's board had scheduled an emergency session. Whitmore Capital would require an independent investigation before releasing further funds. Tournament partners were distancing themselves. Bianca's publicist was trying to sell a story that she had been misled by Adrian about the state of his marriage. Was she? Julian asked. Claire stared at the report. Maybe in part. Not enough. The distinction mattered. Bianca had knowingly enjoyed the humiliation, but Adrian had likely lied to her too. He lied the way some men breathed, not always with planning, sometimes simply because truth required sharing space with another person's dignity. At noon, Adrian arrived at the suite. Julian rose so fast his chair scraped. Eleanor said, "No jaws." Adrian entered with Grant Mercer and a woman Claire did not recognize. Grant looked furious. The woman introduced herself as Mira Coleman, outside counsel for Cross Global's board. Adrian looked at Julian, then at Claire. "You brought your brother." Julian smiled without warmth. "You brought your mistress to my father's foundation night." Grant Mercer closed his eyes briefly, as if begging the ceiling for new executives. Mira set her briefcase on the table. "We are here to discuss containment." Claire looked at her. Containment of what? Reputational damage, financing risk, and any potential personal legal claims between the parties. Eleanor put down her coffee. What a tidy phrase for theft, coercion, and public humiliation. Mira did not flinch. I am not minimizing the concerns. I am trying to prevent escalation that harms every stakeholder. Claire respected the honesty of that, if not the convenience. Adrian sat without being invited. I will issue an apology. Claire waited. A public one, he said. Still she waited. And Bianca will confirm she misunderstood the seating. Julian laughed once. Did she misunderstand the necklace too? Adrian's eyes flicked toward him. Stay out of my marriage. Julian leaned forward. You carried your affair into my sister's seat. You left the marriage in the aisle. Grant slammed a hand lightly on the table, enough to stop the exchange. Adrian, enough. That was new. Adrian looked genuinely shocked. Grant turned to Claire. What do you want? It was the first useful question anyone on Adrian's side had asked. Claire folded her hands. I want the necklace returned through counsel. I want a written admission that Adrian removed it from my safe. I want Cross Global to preserve all communications involving Bianca's travel, hospitality, compensation, and access. I want Adrian removed from any matter involving Whitmore capital exposure, pending review. I want no public statement suggesting I caused this by misunderstanding, jealousy, or marital instability. Mira wrote quickly. Adrian's voice was low. And personally? Claire looked at him. Personally, I want you to stop assuming there is a private version of me who will clean up after G posted at 3 in the afternoon. It was not good. It was too polished, too lawyered, too full of passive constructions. Mistakes were made. Emotions ran high. A private matter became visible in an unfortunate setting. He regretted any discomfort caused to his wife, Miss Claire Whitmore. Ms. Not beloved wife. Not partner. Not even Claire. Miss Claire Whitmore, as if she were an institution he had inconvenienced. Eleanor read it and said, he wants credit for apologizing without admitting verbs. Julian said, I still have the jaw option. Claire did not laugh. The apology left her colder than silence. It showed that Adrian still believed language could polish rot. The internet noted the statement line by line. Football fans, who could forgive a bad pass but not cowardice under pressure, mocked the phrasing. Business journalists focused on Cross Global's financing freeze. Fashion accounts identified Bianca's suit, then the missing sapphire. A retired goalkeeper with 16 million followers posted, if you make your wife leave her seat for your mistress, at least do not choose a seat she owns. The post went viral. Claire should have felt vindicated. Instead, she felt exposed. Public sympathy could be another kind of crowding. Strangers were defending her, but they were also consuming the worst night of her marriage as entertainment between match highlights. At 6, she went alone to the empty stadium. Tom Cruise had nearly finished. Rows of seats stretched silent beneath the evening sky. Confetti clung to corners like bright, exhausted insects. The field was covered for maintenance. Without the crowd, the stadium felt less like a cathedral and more like a body after fever. Claire walked to Royal Box A. Seat A12 waited where she had left it. She sat. For several minutes, she let herself feel the ordinary facts. Leather beneath her hands. Cool air on her face. Ache behind her eyes. No cameras. No Adrian. No Bianca. No one asking what she wanted from a disaster. The seat had become famous overnight, but it was still only a chair. The wound was not the chair. It was being told to disappear from a life she had built. Her phone buzzed. Bianca. Claire almost ignored it. Curiosity, unfortunately, was one of the less dignified survival instincts. She answered. Bianca's voice sounded smaller than it had in the royal box. I know you do not want to hear from me. Correct. I am not calling to ask for forgiveness. Good. A pause. Adrian told me your marriage was over. Claire looked at the empty field. Did he tell you before or after he gave you my mother's necklace? Bianca inhaled shakily. Before. And after. Convenient. I knew it was wrong, Bianca said. The seat. The necklace. The way he talked about you. I told myself you were cold, that you cared more about your foundation than him, that maybe he deserved happiness. Claire did not answer. She had no interest in making confession comfortable. Bianca continued. Last night, when he sent me to the lounge, I understood something. He did not choose me. He used me to hurt you, then dropped me the second I became inconvenient. That sounded true. It did not absolve her. Why are you calling? Because Cross Global's counsel wants me to sign a statement saying I misunderstood everything and acted alone with the seating staff. Adrian's assistant sent me the draft. Claire's eyes closed. Of course. Do not sign it. I know. Get a lawyer. I did. Then listen to them. Bianca's voice cracked. I am sorry about the necklace. Claire opened her eyes. Across the stadium, workers moved in small orange vests under the dusk. You were sorry when it became evidence, Claire said. I hope someday you become sorry because it was cruel. Bianca was silent. Then quietly, I hope so too. The call ended. Claire sat in A12 until the sky darkened. When she finally rose, she did not feel stronger. Strength was not a clean upward line. Some days it was simply leaving the place of humiliation, without hating the version of herself who had once stayed too long. At the exit, Thomas waited. Ms. Whitmore, he said, your car is ready. She looked back once at the royal box. Thank you, Thomas. For what? For asking me not. After 9, the Cross Global Board met in London 2 days later. Claire did not attend in person. She had no desire to sit across from Adrian, while his directors discovered the difference between a domestic scandal and a financing crisis. Instead, she joined by video from Whitmore Capital's conference room, with Eleanor beside her and the sports media committee assembled around a long black table. Adrian appeared on another screen. He wore a charcoal suit and the expression of a man who had practiced remorse in a mirror. Behind him sat Mira Coleman and Grant Mercer. Grant looked as if he had aged 6 months since the final. The board chair, Helena Frost, opened with clipped efficiency. This meeting concerns executive conduct, financing exposure, and reputational risk arising from the World Cup final incident. Adrian's jaw tightened at incident. Claire noticed. So did Eleanor. Helena continued. Mr. Cross, you may begin. Adrian leaned forward. I accept responsibility for mishandling a personal matter in a public setting. However, I strongly object to attempts to convert a private marital breakdown into a corporate crisis. There was the line. He had chosen it because it made everyone else sound invasive. Claire kept her face still. Adrian went on. Cross Global's fundamentals remain strong. Our stadium advertising technology performed flawlessly during the tournament. No client contract was impaired. I have apologized publicly, and I am prepared to take additional personal steps to resolve matters with my wife. Helena looked at Claire. Ms. Whitmore? Claire spoke clearly. Whitmore Capital did not freeze the funding draw because Adrian embarrassed me. It froze the draw because the executive responsible for contract performance attempted to misuse tournament hospitality credentials, involved an unregistered guest in a restricted seating area, allegedly transferred family property under disputed circumstances, and may have used company resources for that guest's travel and access. Adrian's eyes flashed. Allegedly, Eleanor said. Preserved messages reduced the comfort of that word. Helena Frost turned to Mira. Have communications been preserved? Mira nodded. A litigation hold has been issued. Has Ms. Vale's travel been reviewed? Preliminarily. And? Myra's hesitation did not help Adrian. There are expenses requiring further review, she said. Grant Mercer closed his eyes. Adrian spoke sharply. Bianca did consulting work. Claire said, what deliverables did she produce? He looked at her. A campaign concept, he said. Eleanor tapped her tablet. The file labeled campaign concept was created yesterday at 11:43 p.m. Silence. Claire almost admired the absurdity. Adrian had once built genuine things. Somewhere along the way, he had become a man who believed documents created after exposure could rewrite time. Helena Frost's voice cooled. Mr. Cross, did you instruct staff to create retroactive materials? Adrian looked toward Mira. Myra's face remained professionally blank, but her shoulders had the tension of counsel discovering new liability in real time. I asked the team to gather relevant materials, Adrian said. Claire said, that was not the question. He glared at her. You are enjoying this. The room went still. Claire felt the old instinct to soften, to rescue him from his own sentence before it damaged him further. Then she let it pass. No, she said. I am documenting it. Helena Frost leaned back. The board will enter executive session. Mr. Cross, please remain available. Adrian looked stunned. You are removing me from my own board meeting? Temporarily, Helena said. Pending discussion of matters involving your conduct. His screen went dark. For 3 seconds, no one spoke. Then Grant Mercer muttered, finally. It was quiet enough that perhaps he forgot the microphone. It was also loud enough for everyone to hear. The board's executive session lasted 90 minutes. During that time, Whitmore Capital presented its risk assessment. The committee did not demand Adrian's destruction. It demanded governance controls, temporary suspension from contract oversight, independent review of hospitality expenditures, board approval for communications related to the incident, and appointment of an interim operating lead for the Stadium Technology Division. The cross-global directors pushed back in predictable ways. Too disruptive, too public, too harsh for one personal scandal. Claire answered each concern with the calm she had once wasted on dinner-table arguments. If an executive misuses access at the highest profile event in global sport, clients will ask whether access controls matter elsewhere. If personal relationships are routed through company hospitality, auditors will ask where the boundaries are. If a CEO responds to exposure by attempting retroactive documentation, lenders will ask what else has been backfilled. No raised voice. No tears. No dramatic accusation. Just doors closing. At last, Helena Frost returned with the board decision. Adrian would be placed on immediate administrative leave from all matters connected to the stadium contract. An independent firm would review expenses and communications. Cross Global would appoint Grant Mercer as interim executive contact for Whitmore Capital. Adrian would be prohibited from making further public statements about Claire, Bianca, or the incident without board approval. Adrian reappeared on screen to hear it. His face changed as each condition landed. "This is excessive," he said. Helena answered, "No. This is late." Claire looked down at her hands. The sentence hit harder than expected because it was true in more rooms than one. After the meeting ended, Eleanor gathered her papers. "How do you feel?" Claire watched Adrian's blank screen. "Like someone finally turned on the lights in a room I kept cleaning in the dark. Not to the hotel suite. Not to the public rooms where lawyers could intercept him. He went to the London townhouse Claire had inherited from her grandmother, arriving just after 9 with no warning, and a bouquet of white roses that looked expensive enough to be mistaken for sincerity. Claire saw him on the security camera. For a moment, memory tried to make him familiar. Adrian on their honeymoon in Lisbon, laughing as rain ruined his shoes. Adrian asleep with a book on his chest. Adrian holding her after her father's funeral, whispering that she would never have to handle the family empire alone. Then the camera showed the roses, and she remembered he had sent the same flowers to Bianca's suite after the Royal Box incident. An assistant had copied the receipt to the preservation file by mistake. Memory retreated. Claire opened the intercom. "Why are you here?" Adrian looked up at the camera. "To speak to my wife." "Your wife has counsel." "Claire, please." "No cameras. No lawyers. 10 minutes." She almost said no. Then she realized there was no fear in her, only exhaustion and curiosity about what version of him would appear without a stage. She led him into the front sitting room. Marcus, the security lead assigned by Julian, remained in the hallway. Claire did not apologize for that. Adrian noticed. "You have guards now." "I have boundaries now." He set the roses on a table. Claire did not touch them. The sitting room was small by Whitmore standards, which meant it was still larger than most people's apartments. Books lined one wall. Her mother's piano stood near the window. A framed photograph of Arthur Whitmore at a youth match rested on the mantel. Adrian looked at the photograph and flinched almost imperceptibly. "I forgot the announcement was about him," he said. Claire sat across from him. "You did not forget. You never learned." He accepted that with a small nod, which surprised her. "I have been trying to understand how it got this bad," he said. Claire waited. "That sounds like an excuse," he admitted. "It does." He rubbed his hands together, staring at the floor. He looked tired in a way grooming could not solve. "Bianca was not the beginning," he said. Claire's chest tightened. Honesty, when late, still had teeth. "No," she said. "She was proof." He looked up. "Proof of what?" "That you wanted an audience more than a partner." Adrian winced. "I loved you." "Maybe. You do not believe that?" Claire considered lying for mercy. Then she remembered the seat. "I believe you loved the version of me who made your life smoother. The wife who came to events, remembered birthdays, handled donors, softened investors, and never asked too publicly why your assistant booked one bedroom less than needed." His face tightened. "I did not plan to humiliate you that night. That is not comforting. I thought you would move seats. I thought we would argue later. I thought—" He stopped, shame or frustration working in his jaw. "I thought you always chose dignity over conflict." "I did." Then why not that night? Claire looked toward the mantel. Because you confused dignity with disappearance. Adrian's eyes reddened. For a second she saw grief, but she no longer trusted grief that arrived only after consequences. I ended it with Bianca, he said. That is your business. I returned everything. Through counsel. Yes. Good. He leaned forward. Is there any way back for us? The question entered the room and found no place to sit. Claire had imagined hearing it. In those imaginings she was angrier, grander, more theatrical. She delivered a sentence that cut him cleanly in half. Reality offered only a woman in a chair, tired after too many meetings, looking at a man she had loved and no longer trusted with her shadow. Back to what? She asked. He did not answer. Back to me editing myself so you feel large? Back to pretending your temper is pressure? Back to explaining away women who orbit you, because I do not want to seem insecure? Back to being the quiet wife you can move out of a seat? His mouth trembled once. I am sorry. The apology sounded real. It also arrived in a room already emptied. I believe you are sorry tonight, Claire said. I do not believe sorrow can be a bridge by itself. What do you want me to do? Tell the truth without requiring reward. He looked at her for a long moment. And if I do? There it was. The small negotiation hidden inside remorse. Claire stood. Then you will have done one decent thing. Adrian closed his eyes. When he opened them, he looked almost young, almost lost. I do not know who I am if I lose all this. Claire's voice softened despite herself. Then find out without using me as proof. He left the roses behind. After the door closed, Claire asked Marcus to throw them away. Then she went upstairs, opened the safe, and placed her mother's sapphire pendant back into its velvet tray. For the first time since the final, she cried. Not because the necklace was safe, because the divorce petition was filed on a Tuesday morning without a press release. Claire refused to announce it like a product launch. Eleanor filed quietly, citing irretrievable breakdown, misconduct, misuse of marital property, and protective financial separation. Adrian was served at Cross Global's temporary office. He did not call Claire afterward. That was either growth or legal advice. Claire accepted both. The news leaked within hours anyway. By then, the public had moved from shock to analysis. Some people called Claire cold for acting so quickly. Others asked why she had not left sooner. A few suggested she had orchestrated the stadium incident to take control of Adrian's company. Julian Rare took the phone from him. Stop reading strangers. Strangers are idiots. Often, that does not require our supervision. Eleanor, who had joined them to review settlement terms, said, Actually, one should supervise idiots when they sign affidavits. Otherwise, ignore them. The divorce itself was more complex than tabloids expected. Adrian had built Cross Global before the marriage, but its expansion had been supported by introductions, credit lines, and credibility Claire quietly provided. She did not want half of everything for sport. She wanted clean separation, return of personal property, reimbursement for misused assets, and a permanent end to Adrian using her name as silent collateral. Adrian's first settlement proposal was insulting. He offered a mutual non-disparagement clause, so broad it would have prevented Claire from answering basic questions about the World Cup final. He wanted no admission regarding the necklace. He wanted access to certain Whitmore sporting contacts for ongoing cross-global contracts. He wanted the London townhouse listed as a marital residence despite knowing it belonged to a premarital trust. Eleanor read the proposal, removed her glasses, and said, This is not a settlement. It is a burglary wearing cologne. Claire rejected it. The second proposal improved because Cross Global's board pressured Adrian to reduce personal litigation risk. The independent review had found hospitality expenses tied to Bianca, retroactive documentation attempts, and unauthorized use of executive access. Adrian remained on leave. Grant Mercer had stabilized operations without him, which was excellent for the company and terrible for Adrian's ego. Claire learned that through formal updates. She took no pleasure in it. Or rather, she took only a measured amount, then returned to work. The Whitmore Legacy Foundation became the one place where the scandal transformed into something useful. Donations poured in after the final. Some came from wealthy viewers embarrassed by the story. More came from ordinary football fans who sent $10, $20, $50 with notes. No woman should lose her seat. For my daughter. Build a field where girls do not have to ask permission. Claire read the notes late at night. They humbled her. Her humiliation had become a doorway for people she would never meet. She did not romanticize that. Pain did not become good because it produced donations. But if pain was already present, she could choose where it flowed. 3 months after the final, Claire traveled to the first new pitch funded after the match. It was in a small coastal city where the old field had been gravel and broken glass. The new one was modest, bright, and crowded with children before the ribbon could be cut. Sophia, the girl from the ceremony, was there with her team. "Do you remember me?" Sophia asked. Claire smiled. "You saved me from crying on live television." Sophia looked alarmed. "I did." Very gracefully. The girl seemed pleased but confused, which was the appropriate reaction to adult emotional complexity. During the ribbon ceremony, a local coach thanked the foundation for giving children a safe place to run. Claire stood beside him, wind lifting her hair, and realized she had not thought about Adrian for nearly 40 minutes. That felt like a victory no headline could understand. After the ceremony, as children flooded the field, Eleanor approached with her phone. Adrian accepted the revised settlement framework. Claire watched Sophia sprint after a ball, ponytail flying. All terms? All material terms. Admission regarding the necklace. Reimbursement. No contact except through counsel for divorce matters. No use of Whitmore contacts. No public statements without mutual review. He keeps his premarital equity subject to board restrictions. You walk away clean. Clean. The word felt impossible and necessary. Good, Claire said. Eleanor studied her. That is all. The final divorce hearing took place in a private courtroom with fewer cameras outside than expected. Scandals have short attention spans. By then, another athlete had retired, another billionaire had been sued, another public marriage had collapsed under brighter circumstances. The world had moved on. Claire found that mercy in it. Adrian arrived with Mira Coleman and a family law attorney. He looked leaner, quieter, less lacquered. His wedding ring was gone. Claire had removed hers weeks earlier and placed it in a drawer beside old match tickets, not out of sentiment, but because she did not yet know what one does with metal that survived a promise. The judge reviewed the settlement efficiently. Return of personal property acknowledged. Financial claims resolved. Confidential details sealed. Non-disparagement limited to false statements, not truthful testimony. No contact provision. No admission of criminal liability, but written acknowledgement of unauthorized removal of the sapphire pendant from the Whitmore safe. Claire listened without expression. Adrian looked at the table through most of it. When the judge asked whether both parties entered the agreement voluntarily, Adrian answered yes. Claire answered yes. Such a small word to end 12 years. Afterward, in the corridor, Adrian approached slowly. Eleanor moved nearer, but did not interrupt. "Claire," he said. She turned. He held out a small envelope. "My statement. The truthful one. I sent it to counsel already. This copy is for you." Claire did not take it immediately. "What does it say?" "That I misused my position at the tournament. That I attempted to pressure you out of a seat assigned to you. That I removed your mother's necklace without permission. That Bianca did not act alone. That my public apology was inadequate." Her throat tightened unexpectedly. "Why give it to me now?" He looked down the corridor toward the windows. "Because for months I kept thinking truth was something I could trade for a result. Then I realized you were right. It is just something I owe." Claire accepted the envelope. "Thank you," she said. He nodded. His eyes moved over her face, searching perhaps for softness, perhaps for the woman who once would have turned one decent gesture into a staircase back to him. She gave him neither cruelty nor invitation. "I hope you become better than the night I finally saw you clearly," she said. Adrian swallowed. "Do you hate me?" Claire considered the question carefully. Hatred had visited. It had stood in her doorway, wearing Bianca's perfume and her mother's sapphire. It had offered energy when grief made her weak. But hatred wanted rent in her future, and Claire was done giving away rooms. "No," she said. "I do not trust you. That is different." He nodded as if the distinction hurt more because it was fair. They parted without embrace. Outside, rain fell lightly on the courthouse steps. Claire stood under the awning while Eleanor's driver pulled up. Eleanor looked at the envelope. "Do you want to read it now?" "No." "Good. The car has biscuits." "You brought legal biscuits?" "Emotional support biscuits." Claire laughed, and the sound surprised her. It was not large, not cinematic, but it was real. That evening, back at the London townhouse, she read Adrian's statement alone. It was plain. No poetry. No excuses. He used active verbs. "I did. I took. I pressured." He lied by omission. I allowed my wife to be humiliated because preserving my image mattered more to me than preserving her dignity. Claire cried again, but differently this time. Not because the apology fixed the past. Because the past had finally stopped arguing. She folded the statement and placed it in a file. Then she removed her wedding ring from the drawer, put it in a small envelope, and wrote 1 year after the World Cup final. Claire returned to another stadium. It was not as grand. No royal box, no heads of delegation, no camera crane drifting like a mechanical bird over jeweled guests. This stadium held 12,000 people on a good day and smelled faintly of popcorn, wet grass, and new paint. It stood in a city that had never hosted a final and never expected to. That was why Claire liked it. The Whitmore Legacy Foundation was opening its 100th new community pitch, built beside the stadium complex for local youth leagues. Children crowded the sidelines in bright kits. Parents waved paper flags. Coaches shouted instructions no one obeyed because excitement had made all structure theoretical. Claire wore a simple navy dress and her father's gold pin. The sapphire pendant remained at home. Some heirlooms needed rest. Julian stood beside her with a paper cup of coffee. No VIP box tonight? I am allergic. Understandable. Eleanor arrived carrying a clipboard, despite having an entire staff for clipboard-related activities. The mayor wants a photo. The girls' team wants you to take the first penalty. I advised them that your left foot is historically unreliable. Traitor. Fiduciary. Claire looked across the field and saw Sophia, now 13, tying the laces of a younger player's boots. The girl had grown taller, sharper, more confident. She waved when she saw Claire. For a moment, the memory of Royal Box A returned. Adrian's hand on her arm. Bianca's smile. The roar of the anthem. The command to stand. The memory no longer owned her body. It was there, but it did not move her. That, Claire thought, was what healing felt like when it was honest. Not forgetting. Not forgiving on schedule. Simply becoming difficult for the old pain to steer. The ceremony began. The mayor gave a speech with too many adjectives. Julian whispered and did not to laugh. Then Sophia stepped to the microphone. Before this foundation built our field, Sophia said, reading from a card she had clearly rewritten herself, we practiced in a parking lot. Sometimes people told us girls should not take up space. Now we take up the whole pitch. The crowd cheered. Claire's eyes burned. Sophia looked toward her and smiled. Ms. Whitmore says no one should be pushed out of a place they earned. So we are staying. The applause rose around them. Claire stood very still. There are moments when a public sentence returns to you changed by other people's courage. What she had said in pain had become a banner in a girl's hands. It no longer belonged only to the woman in the royal box. It belonged to anyone who had been told to move, shrink, wait, soften, or disappear. After the ribbon was cut, the girls demanded Claire take the first penalty. This is a terrible idea, Eleanor said. I agree, Julian said. Do it. Claire placed the ball on the spot. The goalkeeper was 9 years old and looked viciously determined. Parents lifted phones. Children chanted. Claire took 3 steps back, laughing despite herself. She kicked. The ball rolled slowly toward the left corner. The goalkeeper dove the wrong way with heroic, unnecessary drama. Goal. The children screamed as if she had won the World Cup. Claire lifted both arms, accepting the wildly undeserved glory. That night, after the event, she sat alone in the empty stands while staff packed banners below. Her phone buzzed with a message from Thomas Reed. Saw the ceremony. Your father would have loved it. Claire smiled and typed back. He would have criticized my penalty technique. Thomas replied. Also true. She put the phone away and watched the field lights glow against the dark. Adrian existed somewhere beyond the edges of her current life. Cross Global had survived under new leadership. He had stepped back, consulted quietly, and avoided public reinvention tours, perhaps because no one funded them, perhaps because he had learned something. Bianca had given one interview months earlier, admitting she had participated in harming another woman because being chosen felt like power. It had not saved her reputation, but it had sounded closer to truth than anything she said in the royal box. Claire wished them both accountability. Not ruin. Not triumph. Accountability. She wished herself peace. That was harder, but she was learning. Arrived in autumn. It was a final confirmation that the sapphire pendant had been removed from all insurance dispute files, restored fully to Claire's personal inventory, and excluded from any marital claim. Eleanor sent it with a note. The jewel is legally yours again, as if law had anything to do with it. Claire printed the confirmation and placed it in the safe. Then she took out the pendant. The sapphire was deep blue, almost black at the center, bright at the edges when turned toward light. Her mother had loved it because it changed with weather. In sunlight it looked royal. In candlelight it looked secretive. Against Bianca's white suit, it had looked like theft. Claire carried it downstairs to the piano. Her mother had played badly and enthusiastically. Arthur used to sit nearby pretending to read, while listening with the devoted suffering of a man who loved both music and the woman destroying it. Claire remembered lying under the piano as a child, feeling the notes vibrate through the floorboards. She fastened the pendant around her neck. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she breathed. The jewel did not belong to the night it was stolen. It did not belong to Bianca's throat, Adrian's hand, or the evidence pouch. It belonged to every memory before them and every day after them. Claire had almost let violation become its definition. She would not. Julian arrived for dinner and stopped in the doorway when he saw it. "Mum's sapphire," he said softly. "Too soon?" "No." His voice warmed. "Just right." They ate in the kitchen because both Whitmore siblings preferred kitchens when no donors were present. Eleanor joined late, complaining about traffic and eating twice as much pasta as she claimed to want. The conversation moved from foundation budgets to football transfers to whether Julian's dog had stolen a roast chicken or been framed by circumstantial evidence. Normal life, Claire discovered, was not less valuable because it came after spectacle. It was more valuable because spectacle tried to convince people that only dramatic moments mattered. After dinner, Julian asked, "Do you ever miss him?" Claire looked down at her glass. The honest answer was not elegant. "Sometimes I miss who I thought he was," she said. "Sometimes I miss who I was when I believed it." Julian nodded. Eleanor, softer than usual, said, "That is allowed." "I know. Do you?" Claire smiled faintly. "I am learning." Later, after they left, Claire stood at the window overlooking the quiet street. The sapphire rested cool against her skin. She thought about seats and who was asked to give them up. In boardrooms, marriages, families, stadiums, histories. How often women are praised for grace when grace means relocation. How often peace is just silence renamed by the person benefiting from it. She had been silent for many reasons. Love, strategy, habit, fear of becoming harsh, fear of proving someone else's accusation. But silence was not one thing. It could be dignity, avoidance, patience, or surrender. The difference lay in whether she still had a choice. At the World Cup final, Adrian had tried to turn her silence into permission. She had answered, not with shouting, not with a scene designed for strangers, with a call to the people who knew whose seat it was. That was the lesson she kept. When someone tries to erase you from a place you earned, you do not always have to scream. Sometimes you only need to state your name clearly and let the rest sat in a different royal box with a child on each side of her and mud on her shoes. The match was not a World Cup final. It was the championship game for the Whitmore Girls Academy League, hosted in a renovated city stadium with imperfect paint and perfect energy. Sophia captained one side. Milo's younger sister played on the other. The children beside Claire were Academy Scholarship recipients who had asked approximately 400 questions about stadium lights, player tunnels, and whether famous people ate normal crisps. Usually, Claire said, "Do billionaires eat crisps?" one asked. Julian, seated behind them, leaned forward. "My sister eats them secretly and denies it." Claire did not turn. "My brother lies when bored." The children giggled. Across the stadium, banners displayed the foundation motto that had emerged from that painful night and grown beyond it. No one leaves their earned seat. Claire had resisted using the line at first. It felt too personal, too attached to public humiliation. Then coaches began repeating it. Girls painted it on practice signs. Donors used it without knowing the whole story. Eventually, Claire understood slogans like "grief could change owners." The whistle blew. The girls played with ferocious joy. They slid, shouted, missed, recovered, argued with the referee, hugged after fouls, and ran as if space itself were a promise finally kept. Claire watched Sophia intercept a pass and drive forward. She was not the most naturally gifted player on the field, but she read the game beautifully. She knew when to wait and when to strike. Claire admired that in midfielders and women. At halftime, Thomas Reed joined her in the box. "Royal Box A12 has a plaque now," he said. Claire groaned. "Please tell me you are joking." "Small one. Very tasteful." "Thomas. It does not mention the incident. It honors the first foundation announcement." Claire relaxed. Acceptable. He smiled. Adrian Cross requested tickets last month for a corporate group. Julian immediately leaned in. Did he now? Thomas's eyes flicked with amusement. Standard seats. Paid in full. No special access requested. Claire considered that. Good. No bitterness rose. No thrill either. Only information passing through a healed place. That was when she knew, fully and without drama, that she was free. The second half began. Sophia's team went down by 1 goal, then equalized in the final minutes. Penalties again. The universe, Claire thought, had a sense of humor and a limited playbook. Sophia took the last kick. She placed the ball, stepped back, and looked toward the box. Claire lifted a fist. The girl nodded once, then ran forward and struck cleanly. Goal. The stadium, small compared to the World Cup but enormous to every child inside it, erupted. Claire stood with the children, shouting until her throat hurt. Julian lifted one of the scholarship kids onto his shoulders. Eleanor, who claimed she disliked noise, applauded so hard her rings flashed in the sun. After the trophy ceremony, Sophia ran to Claire and threw her arms around her. We stayed, the girl said breathlessly. Claire hugged her back. Yes, you did. That evening, long after the stands emptied, Claire walked alone along the touchline. The sky was pink above the stadium roof. Her shoes sank slightly into the grass. She thought of her father, her mother, Adrian, Bianca, the seat, the necklace, the night 90,000 people stood for an anthem while her husband tried to make her disappear. Then she thought of everything after. Fields built. Girls running. Documents signed. Lies answered. A ring put away. A sapphire reclaimed. A self rebuilt not as a monument to pain, but as a life with doors open in the right direction. She stopped at midfield. For years, Claire had believed strength meant enduring without complaint. Then she believed strength meant exposing every wound until no one could deny it. Now she understood strength was larger than both. It was the freedom to choose the right response for the right moment. Silence when silence protected peace. Speech when speech protected truth. Departure when staying required self-betrayal. Return when the place had always been yours. At the World Cup final, Adrian had thought he was taking a seat from his wife. He had no idea he was showing her the exact place where her old life ended and her real voice began. Claire looked up at the empty stands and smiled. No crowd. No cameras. No husband demanding she move. Just a woman standing on grass she helped give to others, knowing at last that she did not have to fight for every seat anymore. Some were hers by record. Some were hers by memory. And some, the most important ones, Chapter 16 Adrian's last public attempt to control the story came 6 weeks after the divorce hearing. He chose a Sunday interview with a business journalist, known for giving disgraced executives enough rope to knit their own reputations. The set was tasteful, gray chairs, city backdrop, warm lighting, a small table with 2 glasses of water no one intended to drink. Adrian wore a navy sweater instead of a suit, signaling humility with the precision of a man who still believed wardrobe could do moral work. Claire did not plan to watch. Eleanor did. Julian arrived at Claire's townhouse with takeaway food, claiming coincidence, then immediately connected his laptop to the sitting room screen. Claire stood in the doorway holding a bowl of soup and looked at both of them. Absolutely not, she said. Eleanor was already arranging documents on the coffee table. Absolutely yes. I divorced him so I would not have to attend his performances. And I represent you so performances do not become evidence against you while you are eating soup. Julie, you are here because you like conflict. Family conflict, he corrected. It is texture. Claire should have gone upstairs. Instead, she sat in the armchair and told herself she was only staying because Eleanor was right. On screen, the interviewer began gently. The World Cup final, the royal box, the apology, the divorce. Adrian listened with lowered eyes, nodding in a way meant to suggest pain had educated him. I made mistakes, he said. I have never denied that. Eleanor paused the video. He denied it in writing 12 times. Claire pointed at the screen. Please do not annotate reality every 15 seconds. Eleanor resumed. Adrian continued. What became difficult was that a private marital failure was amplified by extraordinary wealth and influence. When one spouse has access to institutional power, the other can become voiceless very quickly. Julian sat forward. He cannot be serious. Claire felt no surprise. The line was too polished to be accidental. Adrian was no longer claiming innocence. He was claiming imbalance. It was clever. It invited the public to pity him as a man crushed by a fortune larger than his own misconduct. The interviewer asked, "Are you saying Claire Whitmore used her family's capital to punish you?" Adrian looked into the middle distance. "I am saying I wish we had resolved it as two people, not as institutions." Claire set down her bowl. Eleanor was already typing. The interview continued. Adrian praised the foundation. He expressed regret for Bianca's involvement without describing it. He said the necklace incident had been a painful misunderstanding over access to family items during a chaotic marriage. He did not say theft. He did not say safe. He did not say he had signed an admission. Then the interviewer asked about Bianca. At the insight, Bianca was young. She was caught in something she did not fully understand. Claire watched his face. There was no tenderness in it, only repositioning. "He is feeding her to the room again," she said. Eleanor nodded. "Yes." At the end of the interview, Adrian delivered the final line with practiced quiet. "I hope one day Claire and I can both admit that pride hurt us as much as betrayal." Julian turned off the screen before Claire could ask. For a while no one spoke. Then Claire laughed once. It sounded flat even to her. "Pride," she said. Eleanor placed a printed document on the table. "His written admission says he removed the pendant from a secured safe without your permission, gave it to Bianca Vale, and attempted to pressure you to leave your assigned tournament seat. I know what it says." "Then we answer with it." Claire looked toward the window. Outside, autumn rain streaked the glass. She thought of the stadium again, the camera lights, the way public sympathy became a second arena. She was tired of proving pain, tired of translating obvious harm for people committed to misunderstanding it. "No," she said. Julian frowned. "No, not with a public statement." Eleanor's expression sharpened. "Claire, he wants me back in the frame with him. He wants another exchange, another headline, another chance to say we are two proud people who hurt each other." Claire picked up the admission document. "We will send this privately to the journalist and Cross Global's board because accuracy matters. But I am not climbing into his interview to help him pretend the debate is ongoing." Eleanor studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "That is disciplined." "It is also annoying," Julian said. "I had 3 excellent insults ready. Save them for your memoir." The journalist received the admission before midnight. The article attached to the interview was updated the next morning with a correction. Mr. Cross's characterization of the necklace matter as a misunderstanding is inconsistent with a written acknowledgement reviewed by this publication. No dramatic quote from Claire. No new photograph. No tearful rebuttal. Just the record, arriving without permission. The update spread faster than the original clip. Adrian's Global's board requested a fresh compliance certification from him within 48 hours. Bianca's attorney released one sentence confirming her client would not endorse Mr. Cross's revised description of events. Claire read the updates at breakfast, then closed the tablet. Julian looked disappointed. "That was efficient. Were you hoping for fireworks?" "A small controlled fire." Eleanor buttered toast. "Records are better. Fire damages furniture." Claire smiled despite herself. That was the first day she understood silence could be different now. It was no longer the silence of a wife swallowing humiliation to protect a husband. It was the silence of a woman who had already placed the truth where it belonged and refused to perform pain for applause. Adrian had tried to pull her back onto the field. This time, she chose the stands. Gave her interview in winter. It was not glamorous. No glossy magazine cover, no soft focus redemption spread, no dramatic headline about the other woman finally telling all. She chose a serious podcast hosted by a former sports agent who had become known for conversations about power, image, and the price of proximity to famous men. Claire heard about it from Eleanor, who listened first at double speed, and then called with the tone she used when something was both legally relevant and emotionally irritating. "You should hear part of it," Eleanor said. "Must I?" "No, but there is one section that belongs to you." Claire listened in her office that evening with the lights low and the sapphire pendant resting against a black sweater. Bianca's voice sounded different without the stadium noise around it. Less airy, less ornamental, still careful, but no longer coated in sugar. The host asked, "When did you know Claire was not the woman Adrian described?" Bianca took a long breath. "When she told me to leave the necklace," she said. Not because she sounded angry. She didn't. That was the worst part. She sounded like someone who had finally stopped being surprised. Claire looked down at her hands. Bianca continued, "Adrian told me his marriage was dead. He told me Claire was cold, controlling, more loyal to her family's money than to him. He said she used him socially but gave him no respect. I wanted to believe him because it made me feel less like the other woman and more like the woman who understood him. The host did not rescue her from that sentence. Good, Claire thought. But I also knew things were wrong, Bianca said. I knew the seat mattered because he cared too much about getting it. I knew the necklace mattered because he smiled when he told me it had been hers. That smile should have warned me. Instead, it made me feel chosen. The word chosen came out with shame. The host asked, "Do you see yourself as a victim? Of Adrian? Sometimes. Of my own vanity? Definitely. But not of Claire. I hurt her. I participated in humiliating her. I wore something that belonged to her dead mother because I liked feeling like I had replaced her. There is no elegant version of that." Claire paused the audio. The room was very quiet. For a year, people had called Bianca many things. Homewrecker, opportunist, foolish girl, gold digger, victim, liar. Claire had resisted all single-word summaries. They were too convenient. Bianca had been cruel. Bianca had been used. Bianca had known. Bianca had been lied to. These truths did not cancel one another. They sat together uncomfortably, as most truths about people do. Claire resumed. The host asked, "Have you apologized to Claire?" "Yes," Bianca said. "Badly at first. Better later through counsel. I do not expect forgiveness. I think expecting forgiveness can become another way of taking from someone." That made Claire sit back. The interview moved on to reputation, work, and the strange economy of being visible for the worst thing one had done. Bianca spoke about leaving the luxury influencer world, taking a junior role at a communications firm, and learning to write briefs instead of captions. She did not present herself as transformed. She sounded like someone still cleaning a room she had helped wreck. At the end, the host asked what she would say to women who believed being chosen by a powerful man meant winning. Bianca was quiet for several seconds. "Ask what he needs you to help him destroy," she said. "If the answer is another woman's dignity, you are not being chosen. You are being recruited." Claire stopped the audio there. She did not cry. She did not feel healed by Bianca's self-awareness. But something old and sour loosened in her chest. The next morning, Bianca's interview made headlines. Some praised her accountability. Others dismissed it as reputation repair. Adrian's supporters claimed she was bitter. Football fans turned the final line into 1,000 posts. Claire said nothing publicly. Privately, she wrote Bianca a note. Not warm. Not intimate. Not absolution. She wrote, "I heard the interview. Thank you for telling the truth without asking me to carry it for you." Bianca replied 3 days later, "I am learning how not to make other women pay for my hunger." Claire placed the note in a separate folder from the legal file. Not memory box. Not trash. After 18, the Whitmore Legacy Gala returned to London the following spring. Claire almost cancelled it. The previous year had turned her private pain into public symbolism, and the thought of standing beneath chandeliers while donors applauded resilience made her want to hide in the foundation office with spreadsheets. But the gala funded 37 pitches, 8 coaching scholarships, and a girls' referee program Eleanor insisted was the single best use of money because teaching teenagers to enforce rules is civilization. So Claire went. The ballroom was filled with athletes, coaches, donors, and children from the academy programs. Not too many celebrities. Claire had learned that fame could help a cause, but also eat it if not watched carefully. The tables were decorated with small brass lamps instead of towering flowers, so people could see one another. Her father's photograph stood near the entrance beside a muddy football, not a marble bust. Julian walked her in. "No husband," he said. "No mistress. No stolen jewelry. Already a better event. Low bar. Cleared with elegance." Claire wore black velvet and her mother's sapphire. This time, when cameras flashed, she did not flinch. The pendant belonged against her skin again, not as evidence, not as reclaimed property, but as memory restored to its proper light. Halfway through dinner, the foundation played a film from the new pitches. Children shouting under floodlights. Coaches drawing tactics in chalk. A goalkeeper diving into mud with full commitment. Sophia appeared at the end, now taller, speaking directly to camera. "A field is not just grass," she said. "It is proof someone expected us to show up." The ballroom applauded. Claire looked down at her program until the feeling in her throat eased. Then came the auction. A sign ball. A training session with a retired champion. A naming gift for a new academy league. Donations climbed quickly. The mood warmed into generosity, the kind that made rich people feel good, and if properly managed, made useful things happen. Near the end, the host announced an anonymous matching gift of £20 million for the Girls' Access Initiative. The room stirred. Claire had not authorized an anonymous match. She looked at Eleanor, who looked equally displeased by surprise philanthropy. The host read the note attached to the pledge. In honor of the seat that should never have been questioned. A murmur moved through the room. Julian muttered, "Tell me that is not him." Eleanor was already checking her phone. Her expression changed. "It is Cross Global," she said quietly. "Board-approved corporate gift. Not Adrian personally." Claire sat very still. Cross Global had survived and rebuilt under new leadership. Grant Mercer had become permanent CEO. The company had spent the past year repairing governance, paying penalties, and funding transparent community access projects as part of its restored sports commitments. Adrian had no executive authority over the gift. Still, the sentence referenced the seat. Her seat. Her humiliation. The host, unaware of the complicated emotional weather at table 1, continued smiling. Claire stood before anyone could improvise. The room turned toward her. She walked to the microphone. The sapphire moved coolly against her throat. Eleanor watched with the tense expression of a lawyer willing a client toward brevity. "Thank you," Claire said. "The Foundation accepts Cross Global's gift under the same rules as every major partnership. Transparency, accountability, and measurable access for children who need fields more than institutions need applause." A few people laughed softly. Claire continued, "As for the note, I will say this once. That seat became a public symbol because someone tried to turn earned place into negotiable space. But the work was never about one chair in one stadium. It is about building enough fields, classrooms, boardrooms, and futures that no one has to beg to remain where they belong." The applause began slowly, then filled the ballroom. Claire did not look triumphant. She looked, Eleanor later said, unbearable and correct. After the gala ended, Grant Mercer approached her near the exit. He looked nervous, which Claire found healthy. "The note was my mistake," he said. "I meant it respectfully, but I can see it placed personal history where the focus should have been the program." Claire considered him. "Yes." He winced. "Understood. The gift will build fields?" "All of it. Restricted. Public reporting. Then we accept." Grant nodded. "For what it is worth, Adrian had no part in it." "I know. He asked me to tell you he is glad the company is doing this." Claire looked across the ballroom, where children were stealing leftover desserts from a table while pretending not to. "You can tell him the work matters more than the message." Grant smiled faintly. "That sounds like you." "It sounds like my father." "Then I will quote neither of you and simply say thank you." That night, after guests left and the ballroom emptied, Claire stood beneath the dimmed chandeliers with Eleanor and Julian. £20 million, Julian said. "For a seat." Claire shook her head. "For fields." Eleanor looked satisfied. "Good correction." Claire touched the sapphire. The old ache was there, but no longer sharp. A year ago, the mention of that seat might have reopened everything. Tonight it had become context, not command. She looked around the room, at the cleared tables, the tired staff, the last lamps still glowing. "I think I am done being the woman from the royal box," she said. Julian's face softened. "Who are you now?" Claire smiled. "The woman funding the next match." Eleanor lifted her glass of water. "Much better title." And it was. In power, and the moment betrayal meets consequence.